You're now sitting at the Wavetable.
Hey, welcome to episode 4 of the Wavetable. I'm here with DREER, also known as Hamish. And would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and what kind of music you make and all that jazz?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name's Hamish, better known as DREER. I'm a bass music producer based in Melbourne, or Melbourne adjacent in Victoria, Australia. I'm proficient in stuff like deep dubstep, trap, rhythm, dubstep, a bit of grime, and a bit of future garage. My whole shtick, I suppose, is that I'm proficient in experimenting with really weird and unorthodox sound design techniques and creating wet, textural, and degraded sounding basses.
Dope. I was surprised to hear that you've only been going at it for about a year, or at least with this project, because it seems like you've got like a really well-defined sound. And yeah, I don't think there's too many people that sound similar to you.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting too, because it wasn't an intentional sort of, I'm going to make this style of bass music. I sort of fell into it while experimenting within my first 2 years of producing, because I've been producing for about 3 or 4 years while I was doing a DJ alias. And then at the start of this year, I swapped over to DREER just because I was outgrowing that brand that I started when I was 17. And I wanted to create something a bit more substantial. And yeah, it just seems like I half fell into creating this style of music, and people seem to be really appreciating that and enjoying it.
Yeah, you definitely tapped into a niche that I think is going to gain a lot of popularity here real soon. I mean, I think it's already quite on the rise, but I think it's going to get even more attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the most sort of notable thing that's happened while pursuing DREER was actually getting recognized and promoted by Infekt, who's a really popular rhythm dubstep.
Nice.
Yeah. He opened his demos up on Instagram, and he wanted to hear new music, so I sent a couple demos over, and he enjoyed both of them. And you can find that he's liked and commented on them. Which is
dude, that's fucking sick.
really humbling, especially since I wasn't too sure how people would react to this style, because like you said, it's different, to be sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about your recent release called The Rake. It's out now on Syndicate Audio, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely love those guys. They're also actually based in Bendigo, of all places. At least one of the owners lives in Bendigo, and he comes to a lot of the Melbourne shows when they're running.
Dope. How'd you go?
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. I was going to say, it's an interesting sort of thing, because that track, The Rake, has been it was made, I think, halfway through last year actually. It's been around in my demos for a really long time, and I think I only got it mastered I don't know, late last year, early this year, and I just had it sitting in my demos for a while, and once I sort of had a catalog of music going for a bit, I had 8 or so tunes stocked up, and I started sending them out, and before I knew it, I sort of hit up John, the guy that runs Syndicate. And I said, hey, look, here's a few tracks of mine. What do you reckon? Do you think you could enjoy them? And he said, yeah, the Rake sounds great. And it's, now it's out. So it's been sort of a year in the making kind of thing, that track.
Right. Yeah. I think it's really good to have a catalog of tunes stacked up, because I used to do the thing where I would finish a tune and then send it out to every label I knew, and then finish another tune and go through the process again. But then I just kind of stopped doing that and just stockpiled them for a while. And then the first label I showed my stockpile to, they were like, yo, we could actually see releasing 3 or 4 of these as an EP. And now, I'm going to have an EP come out soon. So yeah, I think there's something to take from this experience, is that if you kind of stockpile things and show people your range or variety, I guess, then it might be easier to attract a label to that.
Yeah, definitely. If a label has more options to pick from, and different angles to look at you, that's always helpful. One thing, because I've been mostly sending singles out, and I've already seen a couple of them get releases. The Rake was one of them. I had another track called Hark that came out with Hellhound Audio which is sort of a newly made indie label based in America that took that track on. And I think one sort of selling point that really made the difference for those tracks is the little narrative you sort of described to them that you've associated with these tracks. And once that's sort of explained, and then, I mean, in my case at least, I was lucky enough to have a really good photographer and sort of like visual branding friend help sort of really just put a really neat bow on it. And people just really sort of respond to that.
Yeah, your visual branding is great. I think that's another big thing. Like labels can obviously do visual stuff for you, but I think if you've already got it done, it just kind of shows that you're serious, shows that you put in effort and time and probably even money.
Yeah, definitely that one. Definitely that one. I mean, that also, you know, I think is, for me at least, it feels almost like you can't have the music without the visuals, and you can't have the visuals without the music, you know?
Totally.
The music I describe, like, is described as swampy and stuff, and that's a very broad term, and it can be construed in so many different ways. So it's important. It's important that, like, you know, you try to make sure people understand the direction you're going, and then they sort of reciprocate that, and they obviously, like you said, people are really enjoying it. So
you should do a cover that looks like a swamp card from Magic the Gathering.
Man, like it's great. It's great. I definitely do like look into that stuff. It looks awesome.
So you spoke about like kind of setting the tone for the release to send out to labels and such. And I actually, on a kind of related note, the intro of your track, it sets the tone really well. Like, it's your whole aesthetic, and you just kind of know where the track is going to go from there.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that the intro was really cool because, yeah, just the theme it sets is, and the atmosphere is great.
That's really good to hear, actually.
Yeah,
because I've always struggled with my intros.
I just really like that, like, spoken word stuff, and then all the glitchy shit you do with the vocals is great.
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually, because after doing this challenge that I've been doing throughout June, which is writing a track a day for a month, I've noticed that the most success I have with tunes, and I mean the Rake and Hark speak to that, and a lot of my more like dark and atmospheric stuff, is particularly researching a very niche sort of subject matter to a point where you can kind of visualize the feeling that you have inside of you, and you want to like sort of preserve that and almost express it through the musicality of the track. I think one tune that I finished before doing this challenge that sort of clued me into this was I did a lot of research into like true crime and like, you know, sort of like serial killings throughout America. And it's not so much the topic itself, but how the topic made me felt was the thing that sort of helped in creating the atmosphere and being able to sort of articulate the sort of soundscape that I want articulated to a listener.
Right.
So I think that, you know, that's sort of half the battle, is like knowing precisely to a quite a specific detail what you're trying to like almost like describe to people, sort of thing.
Cool. Yeah. I think that you going a step further and researching it to such a deep level like that makes it a lot more authentic, because there's a lot of producers out there who, like myself included, just throw like samples from horror movies and stuff in there, and it might just kind of feel forced or cheesy sometimes, but like when you actually when it's a real topic, it just feels like a real song, you know?
Yeah, it's like the shelf life of it almost is like doubled by that respect as well.
Totally.
The funny thing about the Rake actually was it was based on a creepypasta by the same name, like a really old 2012 creepypasta about some non-distinct creature that lived in a forest called the Rake, and like the creepypasta just talks about it. It's like, ooh, it kills people and it like haunts you in your nightmares when you see it and stuff like that. And I was like, You know what? I kind of like it. Like it's kind of fun. Like the tone is obviously there. It's just being able to make it not like a creepypasta.
Yeah, you definitely like. I had no idea. Like I'm pretty sure I've read that like back in the day, but even though it's called the same thing, I just made no connection at all.
Yeah. Oh, who knows? Maybe I'll make one about Jeff the Killer one day.
So
make the creepypasta step.
Yeah, so your track's like so atmospheric, yet I found myself like headbanging the whole time. Like it's not like a brutal like screeching fucking ear, like, you know,
it's not dubstep basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still like got a fucking sick groove to it, man. Like,
yeah, okay. I mean, would you like me to elaborate on that, or?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one thing that sort of put me into the position of being able to hit this interesting balance of atmosphere but also aggression was the artists that I follow and really model my work after. Off the cuff, I can think of a couple. So there's like, you know, Booker's Finest. He's really proficient in that stuff, man. Like his bass music is very atmospheric, very vibey. It's got sort of that old school thing, but there's like really modern edge to it. And obviously he's been producing for over a decade, so like he clearly knows his stuff and he can make pretty much any genre very competently. So I model a lot of my stuff after that. Even like I mentioned before, the Serial Killer track, that was based on, because I heard a EP he put out called Bundy Smokes Crack, which is literally like, it's literally one of the tracks has audio of a Ted Bundy interview.
Fuck.
while I was in, and it sounded awesome. It was an awesome track. It sounded very sinister. And another example I also take from, and I think I very explicitly talk about whenever I talk to anyone about inspiration, is Midnight Tyrannosaurus, and how his Underworld EP is probably one of the most like textbook, like this is exactly how I want my stuff to portray, but in my own sort of way. You know, he designed all these tracks around, you know, Hellblade, and a bit about Blade Runner, I think, was also a bit of an inspiration in there. But it had this like nice cohesive story in each track, and it felt like there was this, you know, start, middle, end of like narrative drive in it. And so in addition to that, you know, it was sinister and it was heavy, and at the same time it was almost like very beautifully drab and atmospheric. And I kind of want to do something like that, something that kind of like make you think kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I love tracks that make you think, like, especially in this genre. Like, they're so hard to find, but they're so good.
Yeah, my friend Scribe talks about how he wants people to be able to listen to a track all the way through again.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know, create a track that you can listen all the way through, and like it's not just fluff for 55 seconds and then a drop for like, you know, another 55 seconds that's just a big dopamine hit and then you're done with it.
Did you see that tweet where a guy was like, who even listens past the first drop anyway?
Oh, it's so scary, because that almost seems like that's the direction a lot of people are going. You know, you see 2-minute long dubstep tracks.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's got maybe 16 bars between the first drop and the second drop. So I guess like, you know, yeah, I guess like, you know, my tracks are also sort of there to try help fix that, in the sense of the drop will just be an affirmation of what the build up in the intro are trying to like set and deliver. So yeah, I completely agree with what you have to say. You know, it's vibey, but hopefully it makes your head bang as well.
Dope. So I would like to have you elaborate on another thing in the track as well. There's like the main bass. I don't know how to describe it other than just the watery bass. I guess that's where the swamp thing comes from, right?
Yeah. it comes from a lot of things actually, but okay. Yeah, no, I'll elaborate on that later if you'd like, but go on.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, like if you wouldn't mind opening up your recipe book, like
diving into like the sounds of the swamp. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, you know. The Rake in particular was basically my love letter to when Massive X came out. Massive X came out around the time that I started like sort of really making that track. Cool. And the big hits on the one of each sort of like set of 8 bars, and I think maybe even some of the wobbles are Massive X patches that I rendered out, because at the time Massive X just eats your CPU.
Right.
So that was sort of it. But I think the best way I can describe my recipe book is play the lowest note you can and then work up.
Dude.
And like it works. It works for me at least.
The tones you get from playing the lowest note, like I love making really high screechy shit out of like the lowest note possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting what happens when you do start playing stuff at really obscenely low notes, is that it starts degrading, and there's those like, you know, artifacts that start being pulled out, and it's almost sort of like musique concrète stuff, like when you're designing the sounds. And it has this like really gross lo-fi quality to it. But some of them, I mean, you know, it's not odd for me to play maybe C-1 on a MIDI roll in Ableton on like a massive wavetable, and then distort that to generate more harmonics. And then a lot of it is like, you know, being able to break the sound down, build it back up with filtering and saturation. And I have this little in-joke that I from time to time touch on my Instagram, where I'll be designing sounds and you'll just get these really gross, like DC offset looking waveforms where it kind of like goes like this and then it goes up like that, and then it won't actually come down for the second cycle. It'll sort of drift for a bit, and it'll sound like it'll sound like nonsense. It's absolutely disgusting. But once you start mucking around and actually sculpting the sound from the ground up again, you get these really interesting timbres and tones, and especially with like warping modes, you know, like Ableton's grain mode is pretty much my wife at this point. Like it's all like sort of like granular sort of sounding stuff, you know, being able to stretch a sound out and chop it up in like such microscopic levels and ways. You know, other than the quintessential just do it until you know like what to do subconsciously. My workflow with sound designing is always how can I break this and build it back up, and how can it also communicate the almost like the semiotics of the theme that I am trying to communicate to people in this track.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of continues on kind of the theme from the last few episodes of the podcast, where I've just been kind of stressing to just mess around with shit and then just post-process it rather than trying to build a specific sound right from the start.
Absolutely.
Seems like that's your whole thing.
Yeah. I used to religiously, when I started out, I used to religiously work in MIDI. I used to hate rendering stuff to audio because I had like these commitment issues with like freeze flattening and all that. But even nowadays, you know, if you catch me on a Discord server, I'd be happy to like, you know, I'm always happy to show people this one process I have where I literally, like I'm doing now, like, you know, direct inning my microphone into Ableton.
Yep.
And then putting a rack I call the EDM Talkbox on it, which consists of a vocoder, Serum effects that has the post-process effects section, and then a multiband compressor after that, and then 3 OTTs after that. And basically you just scroll through the different effects in Serum Effects while also recording your voice making really weird, almost like beatboxing or guttural noises or just clicking. And you'll be like, I've got an Ableton Push with me. So luckily all my stuff is macro to knobs, so I can literally like ride the format knob on a vocoder, and then the filter cutoff in Serum Effects, and then, you know, quickly scroll through again to pick a different effect and just keep going through. And I'm almost working exclusively in audio now when it comes to creating sounds and
sick, dude.
Writing tunes. So
this man,
I completely agree.
The source.
yeah.
I think that's the way of the future, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's so many different VSTs that can do so many things that like it's almost insane. Like not just constricting yourself to what a synth can do. And even though synths are getting more and more powerful, it's, I think, equally as important what you can do after that thing to dress it up and to give it that X factor, you know?
Totally. So I was curious, what kind of stuff did you make before you kind of stumbled upon this?
A whole lot of nothing, really. Like I always say I've been producing for like 3 or 4 years, but I never count the first year, because the first year is just the learning curve of figuring out what the software does. Leading up to that, it was just, you know, I knew I wanted to make dubstep, so I've been trying my hardest in the last few years to really refine my style, and I think now it's starting to culminate into the catalogue of work that you're seeing now, and what you will continue to see as the year goes on. I've always been very adamant about learning things and wanting to expand my knowledge, and never really, you know, disregard any piece of information that is available to me, even if it isn't directly linked to what I'm trying to do. And I mean, even though I write dubstep, I'm always happy to like learn about how a future garage artist produces, for example. I've been really looking into that, and one takeaway I've gotten from that is processing my drums and using Foley as like a more percussive element in my tracks. So, you know, I've been making dubstep, but at the same time I've been learning about making other stuff in theory, and that's been just building onto what I already know and what I make. So yeah, that's sort of the roundabout way of answering that question anyway.
That's all good. I feel like there's a lot of people say that when you watch a tutorial or something, you should really put it into practice immediately to like let it sink in. But if you don't really make the genres of all the tutorials that you're watching, that's not really necessarily applicable. So kind of on a similar note, I find it's nice to just watch tutorials across all genres, and then just little tidbits here and there you can add to your own workflow to help with whatever you're producing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I remember a few months ago I was learning more about mid-side and left-right EQing. And I mean, the example they were using in the tutorial was mixing guitars for a rock track. You know, they're like, oh, well, you know, cut the left frequency of one guitar and then boost the right and then boost the left on the other one, and vice versa with the right. And that's how you make two things with similar frequency content sit in the mix fine, even in a mono mix. So yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, it's just good to watch it. Like, it's just good to have it in the forefront of your mind at all times, really.
Yeah. Fun fact, I actually just did that exact thing yesterday.
Yeah, nice. It was funny. I was just giving feedback yesterday on a friend, and literally, also was recommending that like they try that out, because they lost like 6 dB on the mix. Because it was really, the basses were pretty wide, and I was just like, you'd need to probably maybe look into mid-side or left-right. So yeah. Just a small tip on that for anyone who's finding that their stuff is so wide that it doesn't translate to mono well. Just stick like a Isotope Insight or whatever monitoring plugin that has like a sound field meter. I forget what the actual name is. But yeah, just chuck one of those on the master and then solo like all your basses and look at the correlation meter. That's it. Just look at that while you go through soloing all your basses, and just make sure they're not getting too wide. They're not getting not too lost in the mix or anything. Yeah, you know. Yeah, it's fascinating. So along that line, is there any resources out there that you would like to recommend to producers? Like, I know before we started the podcast, we were talking about the Mr. Bill Ableton Ear stuff. Yeah, I mean, from what I've briefly watched, you know, I'm probably gonna later tonight watch more of season 1 of the of his little series on like creating a track. So off the cuff, if you're starting out, I would recommend again Mr. Bill, like, because his YouTube channel is a very valuable resource. He breaks down, you know, basic stuff, and like, even if you're like more experienced, don't disregard relearning the fundamentals. Like this. Like the other day, I've been using Operator a lot, and the other day I only just learned you can actually save and import your own Operator waveforms and like and everything. So that blew my mind. So Mr. Bill, Andrew Huang, Slink's a really good resource. Yeah. He has some pretty like clear and concise videos on specific plugins and effects. There's this really good channel called On Cloud Sine, as in like the sine wave.
Haven't heard of that one. I'll have to check it out.
He has a whole mini series on going through Ableton's stock plugins again and like sort of clearing up what they do and what each knob does.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously if you can't afford like premium classes like that, those are a few resources. If you use certain plugins, look at their manufacturer's YouTube channel. They'll probably teach you about the thing you're using anyway, so you might as well. FabFilter is one that comes to mind. Isotope is one that comes to mind.
Yeah, Isotope's great. For the first time ever, like a week or two ago, I made a rap song, and they actually had a guide, like complete guide, how to mix rap vocals on their YouTube channel. It's great. Actually,
in light of that, read Stefan. He's a really good resource at like, you know, teaching very transferable mixing engineer techniques. Like I learned how to process vocals from his videos. So In the Door's another good one if you really want like hands-on, like watching a producer in ETM.
It's actually like
make a song and break it down. Yeah.
That was a massive inspiration for this podcast. Yeah. I was originally planning to do something like that, but I wanted to make it like an audio only experience as well. And like the video is optional.
Yeah, totally. And in light of that as well, AU5, who could forget like one of the guys themselves, you know. So
the hypergraph.
Yeah, those are my recommendations. And just getting your hands on any and all live streams that you can get your hands on, and especially in this digital climate we're in now, production streams have never been so much more abundant. You know,
I found out
companies
today.
do it every week.
Sorry, who was that?
Company does it every week too. Like, and he's a god.
I need a fuck, man. How did I not know that?
Because they're on Twitch. They're on Twitch most of the time.
Yeah. I found out earlier today that Sudden Death, I don't know how many he's done, but I found out he's done at least one like a year ago. And I don't know how I didn't know about that either. Like, fuck. I just need to get on that shit, man.
For real.
So let's talk about the local scene here in Melbourne or Melbourne adjacent.
And all the Melbourne surrounding areas.
Yeah, so I know we were talking about this before the podcast, and we just think there's a bunch of artists out here that just deserve a lot more recognition. And do you want to like shout out some of your friends and stuff, and then just delve into the scene?
I would love to, man. Yeah, I would love to. I mean, you know, I like to think that I've sort of been on the forefront of, in the last 3 years at least, 3 or 4 years at least, really keeping my finger on the pulse of bass music artists that come through in Melbourne, you know, because we're so far and few between. We got to stay tight-knit and everything. Immediately, I can already think of, you know, Filth Friends, which is a bass music event that has been very important towards the growth of our scene here. I would never have imagined, you know, Mode Step coming through ever, but he came through in February, and that time last year we had Virtual Riot, you know, like that was it was unheard of, like in 2016 or 2017. Another one I can think of is, you know, Mothership, Meet the Locals, where I actually like had my first headlining gig, and it was as DREER, which is that like poster right here actually. Like they're great for like, you know, pushing to the front of people's minds, up and coming locals and all that stuff. What else? In terms of, you know, another event, Your Shot, you know, Your Shot's a pretty important thing just for DJing in general, and even getting like-minded music fans to meet each other. I know I met every single friend I have here through Your Shot, or like, you know, around the Your Shot period. So, because I played in 2017. If we're talking artists, off the cuff, like I mentioned, Scribe is incredible. He's a great producer. He's mastered the Rake. He's mastered a few of my other tracks. He just got a release like the other week with Never Say Die with his collab with Jewel. He's absolutely killing it. Space Prince Corbin, he's doing great stuff too. He is really good at bringing. Yeah, exactly. He attracts people with his hair, and then they walk out liking bass music. He brings a great energy. You know, he brings an energy that gets people around the scene. You know, I think he's a really good example of what our community stands for. Manifex, who used to go by Infectious. He's, you know, one of the rhythm guys around here. Him and I have been friends for as long as 2017, because I think he was one of my first actual like bass music friends. So, you know, I owe a lot to him, and, you know, him being able to facilitate my passions and vice versa. Into Ash, Oscar, he's incredible too. He released on Syndicate with Manifex and Space Prince and several other boys like Mansa, who, again, he's a great bro step artist. They released on that compilation album that was literally dropped yesterday at the time of this recording through Syndicate Audio. So cop that.
I'll put that in the show notes, guys.
Yeah. Vital Mode. He's incredible. He brings this old school Monster Cat sort of vibe. Complextro and melodic dubstep and everything. So big ups him. And Outcry, I can't forget him as well. I'm dropping so many names, but like, dude, I love all. I'm just amazed. I don't want to leave anyone out. All
these off the top of your head.
Oh, dude, it's a stretch. I mean, some of them are on this poster right here as well. So like, it's pretty easy, you know. Outcry's great. He knocks boots with like a fair few, you know, B-list tear out artists and everything. So yeah, and to top it all off, we're all regularly talking to each other and collaborating and doing challenges. And I remember last year or earlier this year, we actually did a little holiday where we all went to a holiday house together for a week.
Oh, shit.
And just sat down and produced for the entire week and talked shit. And from that, one of my tunes that got recognized by Infekt was started at one of those production weeks.
That sounds fucking sick.
Yeah, no, I can't. If you have producer friends that are local to you, I would highly endorse you to just get together, and even if you don't make anything constructive, it's just good to be able to facilitate your passions and confide in each other, your art, and you can all push each other forward. Like how all the other guys have pushed me forward and how I'm now pushing them forward. So yeah, in terms of like the local artists, there's all of that. So hope everyone was writing those names down, because goddamn, there were so many of them, and they're all well deserving. And
I'll have
you should
to
keep your finger on the pulse for all of them.
I'll have to listen to that part again and just chuck like a Spotify link for each one in the show notes or something.
You can find them on the latest Syndicate Audio compilation.
Oh yeah.
Most of them.
Chuck that in.
So, and even then, you know, you can just, if people want to hit me up and go, hey man, can you just give like a cheat sheet of all those names again? Go for it.
Man, I've been meaning to get out to some events and see all you guys play. Like, I actually fucking like feel bad for not going to more events, considering I make dubstep and shit. But yeah. What do you like to do other than producing? Because for me, it's like gaming, and then I guess now it's like making the podcast and socials content and all that. But yeah.
That's actually really interesting. One thing that I picked up sort of in the back quarter, like the last quarter of last year, and this year was actually I've gotten a lot more into reading again.
Sick.
Like off to this side here of my desk is a bunch of like self-help books and psychology books and everything. So I think one thing that's been really interesting for me is being able to sort of emotionally be able to unpack yourself and examine yourself and your character and how your brain works and everything, and being able to also help others and encourage them to also look inside themselves and be able to sort of like coach themselves into a better quality of life. So that's sort of one of my other main hobbies as well. You know, a lot of the time it is just producing is like the main thing I'm doing. But at the same time, you know, I like the idea of being a coach and almost like a guide and a teacher for others. And I think these books are really helping me with that. I've actually got a book out here that I still need to start reading. It's a designing, building, and testing your own speaker system book.
Oh,
so, yeah, that'll be really like, it'll hemorrhage my brain, but it might be really cool.
Oh, dude, So speaking of speakers, 2 days ago, I may or may not have dropped some food inside my subwoofer.
No, no, how?
Well, my girlfriend handed me these new like little bowl-shaped things from McDonald's, and I fumbled, and it just kind of
fell into like the cone or something of the sub.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's insane.
So I think like the back doesn't seem to come off, like it seems to be sealed shut.
Right.
So I think I'm gonna have to like take a vacuum in.
Oh, good luck. Good luck. Oh man,
it's not like as easy as getting a pick out of a guitar. I can tell you that much.
No, it is not. you can't just shake it. Another thing too is fitness. I'm quite into my fitness and like looking after myself. Every morning I go for a walk. I wake up at 4:30, 5 a.m. most mornings and go for a walk, just like up and down, sort of like around the block a few times.
Early, damn.
Oh, dude, no, like that again. That's from reading all these books, you know, and I've sort of conditioned in myself to be able to wake up, go to bed at like 8:30 at night, and wake up at like 4:30 in the morning. So I'm still getting my 8 hours or whatever. But
yeah,
it's really nice being able to be awake at a time where people won't be messaging you. Really helps you get your head clear, and on these walks at any rate, especially in the last month, with like writing a song every day, you have to come up with new ideas and new inspirations. And a really good way to think about that and like gear your mind to being like, all right, so what am I going to do today is just going for a walk. And I'm lucky to be living in a beach town.
Oh,
and so,
nice.
you know, I can hear the ocean every morning. There's barely anyone up driving around. It's a very quiet town where I live. So it's really handy. And you know, again, fitness is like another thing that it's a good release. It's a good way to hit the reset button on your thoughts and your body, and you can go back into, I don't know, your door and approach a track you might have been stuck on with a fresh set of ears and eyes and a fresh, clear headspace.
Yeah, I was starting like the daily walk thing again recently, but then a new expansion for a game dropped, and
now
completely
you're gonna feel what the sun looks like. Yeah.
But yeah, like you know how you said that people can't message you at that early hour because like most people just aren't awake. I think a lot of people achieve that by simply just staying up really late. And
true. My friends who are night owls say the exact same thing. They're like, you know, I wake up at like 3 a.m, man, and stay up till like, you know, as late as 5 or 6 a.m. It's funny because sometimes I'll jump on Discord and they'll be like within like passing out, and I'll be like waking up, and it's sort of like, it's almost like running a marathon and like handing the baton off to someone else to continue the rest of the day, you know? So yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally understand that.
Yeah, I just wanted to stress, like, don't stay up late purely for that reason, or like don't convince yourself it's okay to stay up late just because of that. Like,
I was gonna say, my friends who do stay up that late sometimes also, like, you know, they're working like graveyard shifts at their jobs. So
yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, so like, you know, they'll work from like 10 p.m. till like 3 a.m. sort of thing. So some of them, it's just they got to do it for work. But
yeah, my girlfriend does that, but not right now because of Corona. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do get time to produce like early in the morning. I'm just tired as fuck though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, you got to like get some caffeine in you before all the thinking with like, you know, oh God, what the fuck am I going to write today?
Yeah.
Gets in your head.
That's actually how I discovered like the more chilled out kind of dubstep tunes that have been popping out recently though, because like had to go pick her up at like 3 a.m. or something, and I was really tired, so like all the screeching was giving me headaches and shit.
Yep. Yeah. Something about like listening to rhythm at 4 a.m. just isn't okay unless you're in a club.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're running pretty long here.
Okay.
Well, not pretty long, just a bit over the usual time. But is there any like final shout outs or words that you'd like to say to the listeners before we head off?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to, if you're a producer and you want to be able to create your signature sound or whatever the hell that means, and you want to do something interesting, I would say really think about what kind of emotion you want to put forward and you want people to feel. Then the answers will come to you very naturally and organically. And the more honest you are with creating your music, the more it'll show. In terms of myself and anything to do with releases, I do think I have one coming up next month.
Ooh.
And I'm not going to say what or who. If you want to, follow me and you want to be, you want to see what I'm doing, or you want to see like the tracks I've been making over the course of 30 days, my Instagram at DREER is the best resource for that. And like I said, don't look too far out globally. Sometimes the best music can be right under your nose and you won't even know it.
Dope.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thanks for listening, everyone. This was the Wavetable episode 4 with guest DREER. I'm Astroreign. Peace.